Have you ever felt trapped in a life you never chose, where every option seems closed before you even reach for it? Have you wondered why, even when a way out is right in front of you, your hands feel too heavy to grasp it? Beneath these feelings lies a darker reality, one that whispers that nothing you do will ever truly matter. This is the quiet grip of learned helplessness, the invisible chain that holds so many in place, long after the real barriers have disappeared. People often misunderstand learned helplessness as simple laziness or lack of willpower, but it is neither. It's a profound psychological response to repeated defeat and trauma, one that reaches deep into the nervous system and teaches the brain that control is impossible, that trying only ends in pain. When we experience a world that feels chaotic or unpredictable, especially in our most vulnerable years, we begin to assume that action is futile. Researchers like Martin Seligman, who first coined the term learned helplessness, showed how repeated exposure to uncontrollable stress, like a loud noise that cannot be stopped or a punishment that cannot be avoided, eventually rewires animals to simply stop trying to escape. It's learned, yes, but it is learned so thoroughly that it feels like an unbreakable law. And as trauma experts like Bessel van der Kolk have noted, this kind of conditioning is not limited to animals in labs. Children who grow up in emotionally unpredictable or neglectful homes often carry this learned helplessness into adulthood. It settles in their bodies as a deep, unconscious conviction that they cannot change their circumstances, so why even try? Have you ever wondered why someone stays in a dead-end job they hate, or why a friend can't leave a partner who continually mistreats them? On the surface, the answer might look like fear of change. But deeper down, what holds them there is the belief that nothing better is possible. Learned helplessness thrives in this dark soil, where every attempt to shift their reality feels like a painful reminder that they have no real control. Consider someone who grew up with a parent who was emotionally distant or harshly critical. Every time they reached for affection, they were ignored or belittled. Eventually, they stopped reaching at all. Even as an adult surrounded by kind, available people, they still brace for rejection. And so they never truly try. The past is still whispering to them that reaching is useless, so they never stretch their hands too far. That is how learned helplessness steals years, one silent no at a time. And the most unsettling part, learned helplessness isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it hides in small decisions, avoiding eye contact, putting off a dream for the 10th year in a row, convincing yourself you're too tired to change anything. This slow, everyday retreat often passes unnoticed until someone looks up and realizes they've been standing still for years. Have you ever watched someone give up before they even started? Have you ever caught yourself doing it too? That's the eerie power of learned helplessness. It doesn't need to roar to win. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology showed that when people are repeatedly denied control, their bodies produce less dopamine, the very chemical that fuels motivation. It is not just an emotional state, it is a physical one, slowly draining the will to move forward. The dark truth is that this is not a lack of character. It is an adaptation that has outlived its use. And so, the cycle continues, often unnoticed, because learned helplessness also thrives on isolation. The more someone believes that nothing will work, the less they talk about their fears. The less they talk, the more alone they feel. Picture someone who grew up with every effort dismissed or punished. They learned early that the world will not listen. So when adulthood offers a sliver of freedom, they hesitate. They imagine every door closed before they ever touch the handle. Perhaps you've seen this in someone close to you. Maybe you've felt it yourself. That sense of being trapped in a glass box that no one can see. Even when the glass is shattered, your hands refuse to move because they long ago decided the effort was pointless. This is how learned helplessness steals futures before they can begin. And yet, there is a way back, one that requires small, almost invisible steps, taken with deliberate care. Learned helplessness thrives on repetition, so breaking its grip also depends on new patterns. The first is recognizing learned helplessness for what it is, a learned belief, not an unchangeable fate. Naming it is powerful. It lets you separate your own sense of self from the conditioning you picked up long ago, and then, slowly, you can begin to reclaim choices that feel small but matter immensely. Start by testing your boundaries in safe, contained ways. Maybe it's saying no to a request you normally say yes to out of habit. Maybe it's making one decision in a day that feels purely for you. Not because you have to, but because you can. Neuroscience research on neuroplasticity reminds us that every time we repeat a new behavior, we create a stronger pathway in the brain. This is the real secret of undoing learned helplessness. Every small action is a quiet signal to your nervous system that the world is not fixed in place, that your will has weight, that your hands can still reach for the door, and patience is vital here. It's easy to feel like if you can't change overnight, you're doomed to stay trapped forever. But real progress looks like incremental shifts that compound over time. Treat each tiny success, making a phone call you've put off, standing up for yourself once when you'd normally stay silent, as a foothold. This is especially true if trauma shaped your helplessness early. It took years to wire these responses into your body. Healing them will also take time, and that's not failure. That's part of reclaiming your dignity. When old patterns surge up, that inner voice telling you not to bother, that feeling of futility before you even begin, practice holding space for that fear without acting on it. Give yourself permission to hesitate and feel discomfort, without assuming you must stop. Research into exposure therapy and trauma recovery supports this. Tolerating small doses of discomfort builds resilience. It trains your nervous system that fear is not the same as danger, and action is still possible even when you feel unsure. The more often you do this, the more your body learns that you can move toward what matters without being destroyed by the attempt. And most importantly, seek out relationships and spaces that reflect this back to you. Learned helplessness loves isolation. Healing happens in connection with people who see your potential before you do, who listen without dismissing your fears, who encourage you to take those first tiny steps, even if they seem insignificant. Support is not weakness. It is one of the most radical tools for rewriting the past. Slowly, surrounded by those who believe in your capacity to change, you will begin to believe in it too. And eventually, one day, you will catch yourself acting in a way your past self could never have imagined. Choosing with your own hands what was once decided for you. That is how you reclaim your power, not in one grand gesture, but in a series of careful, persistent choices that remind you you are no longer trapped by someone else's script. Every small act of agency is proof that you can write your own story, and that story is far from over. That is where the real strength lies. Not in grand, instant transformations, but in steady, stubborn refusal to believe that your hands must always hang at your sides. This shift isn't loud or theatrical. It happens in quiet moments, in choosing to hope again after years of cynicism. In letting yourself feel that tiny spark of control and holding it like it's the most valuable thing you have, because it is. And maybe that is the most important part of reclaiming power. Realizing that learned helplessness took shape over years, which means unlearning it will take time too. But time is one thing you still have. Every moment is a chance to move differently, to speak differently, to choose a new path. Even when the past tells you there's no point in trying. Some cages are built so subtly that the door was never locked. But you can only see that if you dare to look. Protect your energy. Stay curious. Subscribe for more from Beneath the Cortex.